Hello and welcome to another weekly update. Welcome to the last weekly update of 2022. And so I thought what we'd do this time, rather than kind of look at the news that's happened in the past week, because Microsoft, like lots of companies, tend to wind down a little bit towards the end of the year, and there isn't really lots and lots of new things to talk about since the last weekly update. I have done some blog posts, but really they're the things that we discussed last week that I kind of trailed and teased a little bit and talked through on the weekly update, even though I hadn't had a chance to write them up as blog posts. So they're the things like the video filters for Teams that apparently developers are going to be writing. And there was something else as well, and I can't remember what it was now. Let's have a quick look. Let's do it in real time. I probably should have prepped for this, but let's do it now. It's Christmas. Yeah, that was definitely one of the blog posts I did, and then there was another one. I think, what was it about? Oh yeah, being able to set presence via the Graph API. Presence status message. So not just presence, but the status message as well. Both of those we talked about last week, so not going to go over them again this week. And really, there hasn't been lots of new news since then. So what I do want to do though, because it is the last one of the year, I thought it would be a good idea just to kind of go through the best bits, if you like, of 2022 in terms of things for Microsoft Teams developers, the biggest announcements and the biggest things. Something interesting has happened, actually, when I was putting together the kind of notes for what I was going to cover this year. All of the things I'm going to talk about have happened in the first 6 months of 2022 up until July. And my reading of what's been happening is that there hasn't really been any really big announcements for Teams developers since July. Now, that might just be a coincidence. It might not be anything particular. It might be that I've missed some really big things. Let me know. But the things I'm going to talk about really have all happened in the first 6 months, which is kind of interesting, but there we go. All right, so the first, again, this is going to be like a big recap, if you like, of the big things not to have missed in 2022 for developers. The first one, let's go all the way back right to the start of the year, right until early January, and talking about ACS, Azure Communication Services, and Microsoft Teams together, being able to embed the Teams client in a web page. The preview came out right at the start of the year, a public preview of using a Microsoft Teams identity in Azure Communication Services. What this means is you can use Azure Communication Services parts and components, but when you load up that website and you step the user through a login, they will log in with their Teams identity. So if these are for internal tools, internal systems, you can have people log in using Teams, and then when they make their calls or join Teams meetings, it's done using their Teams identity so that their presence updates and all the rest of it. So this is cool. This is really good. I think this is really nice. This is what's been missing a little bit between Teams and Azure Communication Services, and it's really good to see these integrations that link and join two pieces of kind of related technology together in the Microsoft space. And it's really where those technologies join together that you get real value for customers and end users. So really good to see. That's a one not to have missed, really, that kind of being able to use ACS, but being able to use your Microsoft Teams identity as well. So that was right at the start of the year. Stepping forward a month to February, and another really big deal, in-app purchases. Now, we haven't really seen this go lots and lots of different places, but it is technically possible for developers to write things now to have a subscription plan inside their applications and to start off with a free model and then pop a dialogue, like in the screenshot here, to get people onto a like a new subscription that they can charge money for. The money stuff all happens through Microsoft. They will handle all of that stuff for you. It's nice. There's a specific permission you need for it, all the detail, but we're not going to go into sort of the full details of this because we are just kind of supposed to be hitting the big moments of 2022. But I think this is an important moment for the App Store. It's an important moment for Teams apps, because if Teams apps are going to grow in number and importance, there has to be a good model for ISVs. And sometimes that is selling directly to the customer. Sometimes it is something else, but like having a subscription model, I think, is important. Having monetizable apps is important for any app store. So, I don't think this is going to result, and it hasn't, because it's been around since February, hasn't resulted in the Teams App Store becoming the new Apple Store. Apple App Store or anything like that. But I think it is an important piece in the puzzle. It's an important piece of functionality for ISVs and indie devs to have a way to put good quality apps into the App Store that are, that can then justify that investment and that, give some ROI to, making high quality apps, because making high quality apps takes a long time and it costs money. And so there has to be a way to fund that. So I think that was good. Also in February, something else really kind of big that happened this year is how it started, this bringing Teams apps to Outlook. And this is kind of an emerging story that will carry over into 2023. This idea that the apps you create in Teams are going to be accessible in other places in Microsoft 365. So they're not just in Outlook. We're going to see them more in Office.com. We're going to see them in the client applications. We're going to see them in other places as well. So this is a watch this space. This stuff is rolling out quite slowly. We all wish it would be a little bit faster, but it's something that came through this year. It was kind of talked about previously, I think, but you can now do it. It's, it's going through the motions. Stuff like this takes a long time because all of the clients need to be updated, all of the desktop clients, all the web clients, all the various different, device clients, they all need to be updated, especially something like Outlook. There's so many different versions of Outlook, it's ridiculous. And so they are all getting updated to support this stuff. But you can do it today. You can write it into your code today, and there are definitely clients that will work on today. Some are in preview, some are not. So this is an emerging story, but it's a big one. And I think we'll look back in a few years on this and say, this was the moment when Teams apps broke out of Teams and became really Microsoft 365 apps. And I wouldn't be that surprised if at some point these got a bit of a rebrand and a rename to make them like, I don't know, Microsoft 365 apps isn't a great name, but something to represent and show that actually these are apps that, yes, you can run them in Teams, but you can also run them in lots of other places as well. Okay, something else about the same kind of time, I think. I can't really remember. Some big updates to shared channels. And so shared channels, yes, like that was a big thing for Microsoft Teams, but actually it was a kind of a big thing for the API side of things as well, because there were a lot of new API calls for shared channels. And this is a good thing because it's good to see the API support come out relatively quickly alongside this brand new functionality for Microsoft Teams. The API investment is important. And so I think it was nice and good to see that was coming, and that came, alongside shared channels. I think shared channels are going to become more and more important in Teams, so it's good to have those APIs there. And so that was another kind of a big moment. Something else that happened in 2022, sort of, and so now we're into a few things that are sort of coming and were sort of talked about and have sort of happened and sort of not. So let's talk about the first one, adaptive cards and gaining Loop components. Now, Loop has been talked about all through 2022 and a little bit before, actually. Microsoft first started talking about Loop in 2021, and now we're at the end of 2022. We have Loop components in Teams. We're starting to see Loop components elsewhere as well. We don't have the Loop app. But one of the things Microsoft did talk about at Build, and this was in May, was adaptive cards having Loop components, which is a kind of good way for developers to kind of take advantage of some of the Loop component stuff. So that's definitely a thing that happened. Now, we haven't seen that gain lots and lots of traction at this point in time. Like, it's not something developers can do today, but I do want to draw your attention to another blog post that happened. So this was in May, this announcement, the adaptive cards set to gain Loop components. That happened in May. There's a follow-up blog post in October showing the results of some of the private preview. So at the moment, and also giving some dates actually, that the public preview for doing this is going to be early 2023. So this is going to be something we can look forward to in the first couple of months of 2023, being able to get our hands on adaptive card-based Loop components. But in the meantime, there's some screenshots in this blog post to show that, these are the results of the private preview. I'm working with some key customers. There's something in here with SAP. There's something in here with Viva Sales. There's something in here from Zoho Projects, and I think that's it. There's something in here from GitHub as well. I'm looking at these. I think I can see why they're adaptive cards and where the adaptive card integration collaboration comes, but in some ways they look quite similar to regular adaptive cards as well. Maybe that's the point. I think we're just going to have to wait for the public preview to see what that functionality looks like, what capabilities are available, and what it all looks like. So that's definitely one to watch, but it has, it was a big news story of 2022 when it came out, but it's just going to be, it's a long news story, right? It comes out in 2022. We're going to get our hands on it in 2023. And I think that's the way it is. I think that's the way these things happen now. Like the news cycle needs to be fed, and so Microsoft will talk about a feature before it's there, and then they'll talk about it as it's coming, and they'll talk about it when it arrives, and they'll talk about it once it's bedded in as well, and talk to us about how to use it. And that's just that for good or for bad. I think that's just the way it is. All right. Another big thing that happened, this is in the June timeframe, and again, I got 2 blog posts for this, which is interesting. This was the news that Microsoft are going to start charging for API calls to Microsoft Graph for certain workloads. And this news came out, June time. And got some kind of coverage there. It wasn't all of Graph, it's some very certain specific areas and certain specific applications. So there is quite a lot of technical detail to ingest here in understanding when you're going to get charged and how you're going to get charged. And it was a bit confusing, and there wasn't really anything that told us why, which is why I want to bring up this second blog post, so that announcement around that Microsoft are going to start charging from July the 5th, that came out on June the 6th. Okay, so there was a kind of a month grace, a month warning, if you like, to say in a month's time we're going to start charging. That was June to July, and then the charging started happening in July. However, in December of this year, there was a really good blog post from Microsoft clarifying the principles of why they're doing this and why they're charging. And I think that would have been really good to have come out at the same time, but it didn't. So there we go. But this covers the how, the why, the when of charging around Microsoft API usage. And so in that respect, I think it's really important and useful and worth looking at. But yeah, so I would look at those two together. I would, if you're coming to this for like brand new, this is like the benefit, if you like, or the beauty of not watching the movies at the time they came out, and meaning that you can then watch them in a different order. I would, if you know nothing about Microsoft charging for Graph usage, and now you want to know all about it, I would read this clarification blog post first, and then I would read the detailed blog post, not the other way around. We all have to do it the other way around. I actually think the messaging lands so much better if you read this principles document first. Okay, let's talk about this last thing, which is live share, which I think is the last really big thing to come out of the Microsoft Teams development platform. The live share SDK, a brand new SDK for meeting stages and meetings, to working with Fluid Framework to give real-time collaboration to meetings. And this is really cool. If you have a use case that maps to what they're trying to do here, you definitely want to look into this. I think it's really, really interesting. Basically, you've got the meeting stage space here, and Microsoft make a bunch of SDKs available to really abstract away the effort of keeping that space and those interactions that people are doing, keeping it in sync with everyone in real time, so that everybody gets a real-time view, the same real-time view of what's happening, which enables things like this, where people can move around, they can zoom in and out, they can annotate, whatever else it is. So you could do this anyway. Like, you could do this yourself. You don't have to use their technology, but they've made it very, very easy to do so. And they've embedded it in the meeting for no extra charge as well. So there is some benefit there as well, like doing it their way, I guess, as well. So that's all cool. So that takes us to July. And there's one more thing that happened in July I want to talk about that's nothing to do with Microsoft, but really in terms of Microsoft news for Teams developers, it does feel like I couldn't really see any really big announcements that happened after July to now. So that's my take on the year, but I mean, your take might be completely different. Let me know in the comments if there's something massive I've missed for Teams developers. You've got me worried now. But the other thing I want to tell you about is July was also the, I think, anyway, just looking at the names, I can't remember, I should have checked, but I didn't. But was also the launch date for Empowering.Cloud, which I've kind of been involved with. And I'm also contributing developer updates too. So if you like the idea of like a bigger update than the weekly updates, you should go and check out, I do monthly update videos there. But also this is a great place to go for short videos, 10-minute videos about all sorts of things to do with Microsoft Teams for IT pros. And not only just IT pros, but just pros around development, around user adoption, around setting up configuration of Microsoft Teams. So like I say, I've been doing monthly updates there for a while now, so you can go and check the back catalogue. And then going forward into 2023, I'm going to continue to do those monthly updates. If you haven't heard of it, it's all free to access as well. All these videos completely free. You can create a learning, like set up a learning path and, you know, go and watch a sequence of videos to go and learn something, or you can just dip in and out. You can search for what it is you're looking for. There's a community as well. So absolutely get signed up because it's free. Start watching those videos, start contributing to the community. It'd be great to see you over there as well. And yeah, like I say, I'm going to be doing update videos monthly there as well. So if you like this kind of roll-up of the year, then maybe consider the monthly roll-ups as well. All right, I think that's everything. It's been a busy year. It's been a busy year for me in terms of things like speaking. It's been great to get back to some in-person events. I hope for more in 2023. But yeah, it's been busy. It's been lots going on. The Teams developer world continues to evolve. It feels like it's becoming more of a Microsoft 365 developer world rather than a Teams specific world, which is interesting. Things like loop components make that even more so. The ability for apps that you build in Teams to work elsewhere, even more so. But that's fine. Like, you know, this evolution is what it's all about, right? And looking at the roadmap of what Microsoft are bringing out in 2023, I'm excited for lots more things and excited to kind of keep on top of what's happening with the development story. There's some interesting things happening around Microsoft Viva as well for developers. So I'm going to try and expand out into Microsoft Viva development in 2023 as well. So look out for that. But yeah, that's everything from me, I think. Have a great rest of year, what's left of it. And very happy new year for 2023. I hope it is prosperous and happy and healthy and all those things. And I will speak to you again in the first weekly update of 2023 next year. Thanks very much for watching.